Good afternoon, guys. Today it is the 14th of January. It's about 12:15, 12:13. I am just getting myself ready for this afternoon. I'm going to have dinner with some family and watch a football game and hang out. I'm doing my nails right now. Let's see, what do I want to talk about today? Okay, I had a conversation yesterday with somebody who came into work to put their child's father on the school paperwork. And, she's, I don't know why it is, but people are very comfortable with talking to me, and they talk to me about anything pretty much. And I said, wow, that's great. And she's like, it took him 14 years to even want to be involved with her. And I said, well, it's never too late. And I'm glad that they were able to come in and do it, and we got to talking about a little bit of things that are personal. And as you guys know, right now I have 3 kids, and I raised them pretty much on my own. My youngest, his dad was involved in his life pretty much all his life. But the older 2, their dad took a different path, and he decided to raise somebody else's kids and be involved with somebody else, and so on and so forth. But that's not what this conversation is about. This conversation is about fathers being active in their kids' lives. And as women, I can only speak for women because obviously I'm not a man. I think that it is very important that no matter what our feelings are against somebody or for somebody, or whether we're getting along with them or liking them or not, that our children need to have their fathers involved in their life. And I can talk to you about this because I personally did not have my dad in my life. And, throughout my life, there were times where I was questioning, am I like him? Do I look like him? Do I act like him? Who am I? And I found out later in life that my whole life has been a lie. My mom lied to me about so many different things about my father and about his identity, and she said she was trying to protect herself, which I can get to a degree because I was protecting my children from their father when they were young. I made it to the point where he was able to see them once they were able to reason and tell me that they wanted to see him, and tell me if they were being harmed while they were with him, and so on and so forth. I understand you have to make decisions that are best for your children, especially because you know the father. But if you're making that decision based on you don't want somebody else around your child, or you think you're protecting your child by keeping him out of their life, I can tell you this: your children will grow up with some serious struggles. I grew up, thinking I knew who I was, and come to realize that my entire life was a lie. And I didn't know who I was because I didn't know who he was. And that is one of the hardest things that I had to face in my adult life. I didn't learn too much about my father until I was already in my 40s, and I'm only 44. I realized that I had a whole nother family out there that I had no idea about. I had siblings and, nieces and nephews and so on and so forth. And I learned that I only knew of half of who I was. And even that I questioned because my mom lied about everything that was going on in my life. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that, regardless of how we feel about the dads, it's important that they're active in their kids' lives. And it's important that they have knowledge on what's going on with their kids, and that their kids have knowledge about who they are. Children are very resilient, and they will tell you if that's not where they want to be, or if they don't want to be around people. There are things that will show through a child, and it's not our choice to have a father in their life. We chose to make these children with these men. And vice versa, if you are a single father and you are raising a child, they need to know who the other half of them are. They need to know the truth about them. They need to have honest conversations about their other parents. A child will grow up confused. You lose half of your identity not knowing where you came from. You need to know both sides. You know, if you are adopted, I think it's important that you know the truth about what your parents were like, and their reasonings, and who they were, and what their hobbies were, and what they were like as a person, and if they had addictive personalities, if they had medical issues. There's so much that goes on. You know, I grew up not knowing anything about my father, absolutely nothing. I found out that everything that my mother has ever told me was based on a lie, and that lie was to protect herself, not to protect me. And when I had children, I personally made a conscious decision that my kids were going to know who their father was, the good, the bad, the ugly. I mean, at the time, I made the decision to think that I was in love and have children with him. And at one time, I thought that he was a great individual. And just because we're not together does not mean that he is not my kid's father. I think that it did a good thing by my children by allowing them to know who he was. He showed his own true colors. So when he was there for them, he was there for them. And if he wasn't, he wasn't. I never went about saying bad things about him because that's not my place. When you say bad things about the other parent, your children look at you like with a little bit less respect. I think that if you speak honestly and positively about the other parent, that your children will be more open to tell you how they're actually feeling. When you talk bad about the other parent, the children will close off. They're not going to tell you, well, Mom, you know, I really want to know about my dad. Or Mom, you know, was my dad a good person? They're never going to ask you any honest questions, which means they're already cutting you out of their life and things that they actually want to know. Trust me, every child wants to know where they came from. No matter what you say about the other person, and if you cut them out of their life, they're going to seek them out. And they're going to seek them out without you and without proper information. So if you're truly protecting your child because the person is a bad person or whatever the case may be, it's best to be honest with your child. You know, I've had experiences with my two older kids' father where he promised to be involved in my kid's life, and I knew better. I knew he wasn't going to be. I knew that he wasn't going to show up when he said he was going to show up. And even though I found myself trying to protect my kids from that initially, I actually had to let my children experience the kind of person he was. That was not me saying something bad about him. That was not me giving them information that they were too young to understand. It was about them understand, you know, finding out on their own, okay, I'm not keeping you from your dad. Your dad's just not coming. You know, I remember when my daughter was going to a father and daughter dance, and her father promised that he was going to be there to take her, and I knew in my heart that he wasn't. And trust me, I had a backup plan for her. She ended up going. She just went with one of my friends. One of my guy friends took her. But I allowed her to get ready. I, with her, sent a text to her dad with all the information and said, this is our address. Please come pick her up. She'll be waiting. You know, she's ready. She's dressed, so on and so forth. And I think she had to be maybe 7 or 8. She could have been even a little younger. No, she was about 7 or 8. And she sat on that front porch with her little dress on and her little flowers. And she waited and waited for her dad. It seemed like an eternity. It was really like an hour. But to me, it felt like an eternity. And my heart was breaking for her. I was hoping that, you know, this was going to be the one time that he was actually going to come through and do what he said. This was my daughter's first school experience where it was a father-daughter dance, and as a single mom, obviously I can't take her to it. So I actually had hope. I actually had hope that he was going to show up and go with her. So she sat on the front porch and she waited and waited for him, and he never showed up. I mean, I knew that he wasn't going to come because I knew this man. You know, is he the same now? No, I don't think he's the same. But my kids are also in their 20s and make their own decisions, and they have a relationship with him based on the way they know how to have a relationship with him. But, you know, I sent somebody else with her, and, you know, he never showed up, and she came home and cried and wanted to know why her dad didn't love her, why her dad didn't come. And it's like, Men, this is what goes on with your children when you're not a part of their life. They need to know everything about them. They need to know where they came from. They need to know who you are. They need to know who your family is. They need to know, how can a child grow up with a half of identity? I made decisions and I've moved on with my life, and I've was in relationships, and yes, the men played a good role in my kids' lives, because I made sure that if they were going to be in my life, that they were positive for my kids. But they were not their dad. And even though I found that they were teaching my sons how to be men, they can't teach them how to be who they are, because half of them comes from somebody else. I knew growing up, I really felt lost. I felt invisible. I felt unwanted. I felt denied. I felt embarrassed. I didn't know who I was. I actually still sometimes struggle with my identity and who I am. I know who I am. I know I'm a good person, but I still struggle with not having a father. My father passed away before I had the chance to meet him, which truly devastated me. I have a great family out of this, but on the same note, I'm still without a father. And now my mother has gone. I realized that my mother had lied my entire life. I remember my mom lying. And I found out, later on in life, that she lied on school records and said I was born in one year when I was born in another. And it's like, what was your reasoning for this? I found a lot of stuff out, and I can talk about that later in another video, about what I believe my mom's reasonings were, because my mom never really gave me a reason for why she did what she did. The four of us who were raised in the same home were taught that me and my younger sister had the same father, and me and my older sister had the same father. I didn't find out until I was in my 30s that me and my sister have a different father. And it was kind of heartbreaking. And it's like, you kind of lose hope with your identity. You kind of don't know where to go. You don't know how to act. You don't know. There's so much going on, and it's like you feel, I can't speak for everybody, but I can tell you how I felt. I felt like I was unwanted. I hated my life. I hated who I was. I hated that I felt that I must have looked like my father, because my mother really never loved me. At least that's how I felt. I'm not saying that was the case. I think she loved me. I think that she seen too much of him in me, and she pushed me away. I don't remember my mom really hugging me, holding me, loving me, kissing me, telling me things to make me feel good about myself. But I clearly remember her telling me, "You're just like him. You are just like him." And just like who? How can you say something like that and not finish with who? I felt like it's something that is wrong with me. There's something wrong with me, that my father didn't want me, that my mother tried to keep me a secret, that, there was just so much going on. And I was like, how could someone say they love me and then lie about every aspect of my life? So back to what I was saying, kids need to know where they came from. As young parents, I'm going to say you need to swallow your pride. And I understand that you get hurt and you get angry, and you don't want to see your child around another female or male, but your children need to be around their parent, and you have to trust that the person you chose to make a child with is going to do what's in the best interest of that child. I don't think they're going to bring people around who are not good for them. And if they are, then you need to protect your child. But you have to give that other parent the opportunity to do so. You have to give that other parent the opportunity to be a parent. At least get your children to know who they are. There's other family, even if you don't get along with the father or the mother. There's other family. There's aunts, uncles, grandparents. There's all these other people that can help with this child understanding their identity. I find it every day that kids have no idea who they are because they don't know who their parents are. So, this is just a view that I have. By no means do I think I'm right on everything. By no means do I think I'm wrong on everything. I can speak from my experience, and that's what I'm going to continue to do. So for right now, what I stand by is that kids need to know where they came from. Kids need to know who they are. I was born Shirley Georgine Jones, but I know nothing about the Joneses. I was raised by somebody who allowed so many bad things to happen to me. and called it in protecting me from somebody who was abusive. So you kept me from one abuse and exposed me to another. If my father was abusive, I get it. But at what point am I old enough to make decisions for myself? 18, 19, 20, 25, 30, 35? My mom took my father's information to her grave and never told me anything. That is something that is hard to deal with. It is something I deal with every day. I'm coming to grips with my identity and who I am, and I'm proud of where I came. So if I can teach anybody anything, mothers and fathers, let your children know where they came from. Let that other parent show who they really are. If they're not going to be in your children's life, let it be on them. Don't let it come back to your kids thinking you kept them away from them. If they don't show up, you were there. Your child sees you trying. Your child sees you putting in the effort, and they understand that the other one is not. So just keep doing that and keep pushing for these people to be involved in their kids' lives. They owe it to them. It's not always about the money. It's not always about what they can provide for them. Sometimes the best thing the other parent can provide for them is knowledge, love, understanding, and knowing where they came from, understanding their roots. Let's not get caught up on the money part. Yes, they need to pay. Yes, they need to help. Yes, they need to contribute. But if they can't, there's some things that money can't buy. Let's give our kids that. So I'm going to go ahead and finish my nails. They're coming out pretty good. And I'm going to get on with my day, and I will chit chat with you guys later. I hope you have a good day. Talk to you later and give this some thought.